Still Poddable, still Poddable. Boston Celtics, still Poddable, still Poddable. Oh yeah! Still Poddable, still Poddable. Boston Celtics, still Poddable, still Poddable. And a 19.
Beat Rob, Jim, Becca, J. King.
Still Poddable, still Poddable.
The Caesar on the court to get another ring.
Still Poddable, still Poddable.
Everybody in the chat now sing.
Still Poddable, still Poddable. Still Poddable, still Poddable. Boston Celtics, still Poddable, still Poddable. Oh yeah! Shut your ass up,
You guys always have been here.
Welcome back to Still Poddable, the best Celtics podcast here on Al Gore's Interweb. I am Sam Jam Packard, and this is the Poddable post-game show. I am flying solo dolo tonight. So it's just going to be me screaming at you unless you want to join in the comments or do a little interactive chat like I was Hassan Piker or something. That was me trying to be hip, mention a guy I know to be on Twitch, but we'll keep on going here. Celtics lose. The 9-game winning streak is over. The month turned to April and you just can't be perfect. They have lost their 20th game of the season. And they only were able to get 56 wins. There was legitimate discussion with this team about whether or not they would get to 40 before they would get to 20 losses. They got to 56 and 20. And I'm not sure exactly what it is about the first game back from a long road trip, but the Celtics are absolutely awful this year. I think they're 0-4 this year on the first home game back after a long road trip. They just did not have it tonight other than Luke Cornett. Like, Luke Cornett came in and was this dominant force early. He was just looking at the box score. He's the only player who is positive in the plus minus. I know single game plus minus is not the best statistic to use, but I'm a solo podcaster doing a post game recap. I'm going to rely on that single game plus minus. Luke was a +3, and everyone else tonight was in the negative. Luke came in the first quarter and was just all over the glass. I think he had 10 points, 6. He was 5 of 6 from the field. He was just another very solid performance from him. He was obviously starting because no Kristaps Porzingis, no Al Horford. Both those guys getting kind of just, I think, a natural rest day as the Celtics gear up for the playoffs. Drew Holiday is also out. And so Cornett comes in, and the problem is Luke Cornett was the leading scorer after the first frame. He had 10 points. After the second quarter, Luke Cornett remained the leading scorer with 10 points. He got into some foul trouble, so he didn't really play much in the second quarter. And that's where we got 2 different experiments with bad results. The first one is what we like to call Nemias Queta. He played, and he was not good. And he was so not good that and that's kind of an experiment that the Celtics have been running this entire year, and we know that he's not that great of an NBA-ready ball player. Then the Celtics fell down by about 12, and Joe said, "You know what? You know who also can play center? Torrey Craig." Now, I guess technically Jason Tatum is the center in those lineups, but the Celtics went very, very small and were just getting destroyed at the rim. Just bucket after bucket on the inside. I'm guessing the Heat dominated in points in the paint today. Let me look it up on the box score here. Heat had 44 points in the paint, were 22 for 39. Celtics actually did a better job, 50 points from the paint, 25 for 39. But it just felt like when the Celtics did go small, there was no real option for them defensively. And Tyler Hero really found his way to the rim. Davion Mitchell had a solid game. Kyle Slow-Mo Anderson was pretty solid and pretty unstoppable there in a stretch in the fourth quarter. Obviously, Bam Adebayo didn't really do anything because he is a choke artist and not very good on the offensive end of the court. It would have been nice to get this win against the Heat, as I continue to slander them because I hate the Heat, but I think you got to give Tyler Hero some credit. He had 25 points, got to the line 10 times, knocked down 9 of them. He also had 9 assists. He was really dealing. And so it was a pretty ugly game, especially to end the first half. The Celtics, in the first quarter, they were 2 of 12 from three-point land. In the second quarter, which was really where they probably lost the game here, they finished the first half 3 of 18 from deep, and boy, was it ugly. Just not a good first half from the Celtics, and that's why they found themselves down 14. Now, to give the Celtics some credit, they made the game a little bit interesting in the third quarter. They started small again because I'm not sure exactly why. Luke Cornett was no longer in foul trouble, and it was kind of an icky, not great start to the third quarter. Pell's a new guy who's on here. Pelle Larsson, the Swedish rookie from Arizona, was just dunking on people left and right. It wasn't a great start. Boom! Luke Cornett checks back in the game, and all of a sudden the Celtics start playing defense again. They go on I think it was a 22-1 run at the end of the third quarter. It was just Jason Tatum decided to show up and score some points. I think he only had 1 bucket in the first half. He knocked down a 3. Jaylen Brown knocked down a 3, cut it to about 8. Then Jason Tatum and Luke Cornett started playing well with their pick and roll game. Tatum had a nice zip pass to the quarter. Baylor Shireman doesn't even take the ball down, knocks down the three-pointer. Luke's on the glass. Everything's going there. And you think they end that third quarter, you think they have a chance. It's 91-81. They start making some threes. You're like, this is Boston Celtics basketball. They start playing some defense there. They hit 7 threes in that quarter. And you think maybe we got something brewing here. And again, I headed into the fourth quarter. I thought they're absolutely going to get back in this game. The crowd was in it. Hauser hits a big 3. Nemi back in the game. He hits a big and one. And that's really when Kyle Anderson kind of took over, which is not something you expect to say, but something you kind of end up saying from time to time. Kyle Anderson just is a real solid basketball player. But there was this stretch where it's like you really think I think they cut it to 4 or 5 at one point, and you're like, the Celtics are really going to get back into this. I have it in my notes. There's a timeout at 7:13 left in the fourth quarter. Celtics are only down by 7. They bring all the starters back in the game, and then within 2 minutes, they just completely gave up the rope. The Heat went on a 9-0 run, and I just have in my notes, the Celtics just don't have it. And once it got to 5 minutes, Joe completely gave up. That was the end of the game. Unleash the starters, unleash the G League MVP, J.D. Davidson. And that was the game here, folks. Celtics lose. What was the final score? Celtics lose 124-103. And just an ugly game. I'm not going to call it a schedule loss, but a game given the Celtics track record this year, you expect them to struggle in that first game after a long road trip. So I guess this was a given. If I'm doing the coping thing, this was a given after you win. If you sweep the 6-game road trip, you're probably going to come back and lose the first game back. It's something they've done all season. There was a brief moment of joy, of hope, perhaps earlier in the evening when the Knicks were beating the Cavs and the Celtics were winning, where I thought, maybe they're going to be able to cut this down. Maybe they'll cut this to 3.5 games, and maybe the 1 seed's in play. I don't think that's the case, folks, because now the Celtics are officially 5 games back of the Cleveland Cavaliers with only, I think, 5 games to play. It would have to be a colossal failure. Actually, in looking at NBA.com, I think, they only clinched the Central Division. The Cavs have not clinched the conference yet, but I think that's going to be updated shortly. So it was a tough game for the Celtics. Jason Tatum just didn't have it. Jaylen Brown was pretty aggressive to start, and he didn't really seem like he had it either. Just looking at Jason Tatum was 4 for 17, 16 points. Jaylen Brown 10 for 20, which I guess is an efficient game. 50% from the field. He had 24 points. Derek White knocked down some threes. He had 16. But it just wasn't a great offensive performance from anyone on the Celtics. They finished the game shooting 28% from 3, 12 of 43. So only got up 43 threes, which is not a lot for them. And then shot 28%. They shot 45% from the field. And so it just wasn't a great performance. Sometimes you're going to lose. They still have 56 wins. And the push for 60, I think the push for 60 is still something I think will be interesting here. Let's see how many games they have left. 6 games left. So they have to go 4-2 in those final 6 games to get to that 60 win total. One of those games is against the tanking Washington Wizards. 2 of those games are against the tanking Charlotte Hornets. And so those should be wins, but I really hope that no one is playing in those Hornets games. And so we'll see what happens on Friday night. It's really this Friday night game against the Suns is a big game. Big relatively. And the game against the Knicks could be interesting. Who knows? Obviously, riding solo on this one, so it's going to be a shorter podcast. Let's get to the junk. Let's get to the segments. Let's get to the Poddable still of the game. Now, one of my best favorite segment ideas, mostly for the name alone. And so for those listening on the audio edition, I'll do my best to just describe what's going on in this picture here. We've got 3 nominees. This one is the king. And this has just been popping up on the Still Poddable chat from time to time. And if you're watching out there on the YouTubes or on Twitter and want to join Still Poddable chat, it's a lively community. You can get it right there on your phone. It's very fun to watch a game. It kind of feels like what Weird Celtics Twitter was going for back in the day. And you get a bunch of dumb memes like this. Al Horford sitting with a chair strategically placed that it looks like he is completely bottomless. And it looks like he's just naked in the stands. That is a nominee for Still Poddable still of the game. The second nominee is going to this book called Sky Jam. It's a choose your own adventure book. It not only has the title Sky Jam, but it was written by one Edward Packard. And I like to claim I'm related to every Packard who's ever existed in the United States, because the great Samuel Packard emigrated from England. He was in East Anglica, and he came over. He was a yeoman farmer, and he came over to, I believe it was Braintree in 1638. I was named after him, and he probably begat all sorts of folks, guys named Hezekiah, things like that. And so any Packard out there I am related to, unless they have done evil stuff, then I do not claim them. But I do claim Edward Packard writing for Sky Jam. But that is not the Still Poddable still the game. That is going to be Luke Cornett holding the Still Poddable logo. Man, I'm excited for Luke Cornett to play in the playoffs. He's a big contributor now. They don't have any viable centers behind him. Yes, that is shade at Nehemias Queta. But I've just been very impressed with just his development this year. I feel like we've talked about this a lot this week, but he was just damn good. He knows how to set screens. He knows how to pass. 6 offensive rebounds tonight, 14 points. Again, he probably should not be your leading scorer in the first half, but really what the moments he was in the game, the Celtics were good. He was +3 in his 21 and a half minutes. And the Celtics were just lost all the remaining minutes. When he came off the court in the second quarter, bad things happened. When he came off the court in the fourth quarter, bad things happened. And so Luke Cornett wins the Still Poddable still of the game. Whew. Solo podding's ridiculous. It's wild that Jim Rome has ever done this. I need to take more dramatic pauses like Jim Rome. That's right, folks. We're going to wrap it up with everyone's favorite segment. This is the Junk Drawer, Jam's Junk Drawer. This is all my other nonsense observations that somewhat have to do with basketball, but just kind of have to do with watching the broadcast. I had one big takeaway from watching the latest episode of Celtics City. I consider myself a pretty big Celtics fan. I am talking to people right now alone. I host a Celtics podcast. I got a banner hanging on my wall. But the Celtics City about the 1984 NBA Finals. And they talked about Gerald Henderson stealing the ball from the Lakers in game 2 of the NBA Finals to tie the game, to send the game to overtime. All the Lakers had to do was inbound and get fouled. They're up 2 with like 20 seconds left. And James Worthy just throws the ball away completely. I've obviously heard of the Henderson steal, but in terms of like the great steals that have happened in the great moments in the Celtics playoff history, this Henderson steal doesn't get talked about whatsoever. And Bob Ryan's on there saying it's like more important than Havlicek steals the ball. Obviously, I feel like that Havlicek steals the ball is because Johnny Most has a great call of that. And the call of Henderson wasn't as, I guess, dynamic. But like, if that happened in the modern NBA, James Worthy would be talked about for weeks about how he choked away. And then they lose the finals. Like, James Worthy throws away game 2, and then the Lakers lose the finals. It's just shocking to me, and I guess this is the first time I've really appreciated it, how little of an event that is talked about, especially in Celtics lore. And maybe it's because Gerald Henderson is not like a super celebrated Celtics, especially on those 80s teams. And James Worthy, like the Lakers went on to win in 85 and 87. And like, obviously it didn't ruin James Worthy's career, but what a choke. What an awful pass. It's just absolutely insane to me how little that's talked about as a moment. That's not even junk, but I'm going to play the junk sound anyways, just so I can take a breath. Joe Mazzulla does not give a fuck about winning Eastern Conference Coach of the Month. He's asked about it and he immediately dismissed it, and I love that guy. They did show a clip on NBC Sports Boston. They asked him before the road trip, Kristaps Porzingis, what does a successful road trip look like? And he said 6-0 and then flashed that classic KP smile. That rocks. It's awesome to just play that clip back after they did go 6. Corn on the Lob is a fantastic nickname. When Scal says it, it seems fucked up. I don't know why. He's not really a silly guy. He can't say things like corn on the lob, so I don't like that. Derek White is shooting 61% from 3 in the clutch. That's insane. Luke is a dog. He's doing all this dog stuff. He's barking. Luke Cornett. Some people call him Corn Boy. Some people just call him Corn. If I call him Corn, I would say he's a freak on a leash. That's a joke for folks who grew up in the 90s. I did like Jason Tatum yelling at the refs. If I did that, it would have been a delay of game. I also like Jason Tatum pulling up another tech. He's very close to approaching the suspension mark, and I think that would be a perfect way for Jason Tatum to get a game of rest in the final weeks of the season. So I'm all for Jason Tatum. Get techs. Get thrown out of a game, why don't you? Express yourself, Jason. I'm all for that. Shout out to Steven Pagliuca. He got passed over for his bid to buy the team. He released a rather bitchy 5-paragraph essay about why he should have been bought, but he still showed up tonight and sat next to Wick and sat next to Billy Banners, and just had to be there hanging out with the two guys who went around his back to make a deal. Pags is a real one, and that's got to be tough. Like, you're hanging out with the guy who wouldn't sell you the team, your business partner, and you got to sit next to the guy he did sell it to, who's apparently richer than you and is liked more than you and has a cooler nickname than you. So I got to give credit to Steve Pagliuca for just still showing up and still hanging out. Did Sam Hauser get more bald? Tune in at 11. JD Davidson. I'll end on a positive note. JD Davidson, G League MVP. Pretty cool. Just had absolutely dominant stats this year. Just dropped, I think, 35 plus points in their opening round playoff game against the Capital City Go-Go. For those who are friends of the program, you might know that my good friend Nick Friedman is an assistant coach for the Go-Go. And so I texted him after the game, and his one response was that JD Davidson is like looking like an NBA player. And so I think that's just exciting for Celtics fans. I don't know if he's necessarily going to get his chance on the Celtics, just because there's many guards in front of him, including Peyton Pritchard, 6th man of the year. But it's just cool to have a guy in your system be developed and continue to play. And the main Celtics should be called the Red Claws. Very upset they're not called the Red Claws. Continue on in the G League playoffs, and hopefully JD Davidson continues to hoop. He's definitely been a project since he came out of Alabama. He was at Alabama. Jordan Walsh is at Arkansas. But you got to give him credit for winning G League MVP and just continuing to hoop in whatever situation he's in. Don't think he's necessarily going to make an impact on Celtics, but kudos to him for still hooping. I am shocked that I was able to go for 20 minutes, but that's the Still Poddable difference, folks. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you want more Still Poddable, go to patreon.com/stillpoddable. Subscribe today. Tune in tomorrow. We'll get Jay and B-Rob's reaction to this game, and then we'll be back next week for another full week of Celtics podcast, Monday through Friday. We very much appreciate everyone who tuned in, everyone who's in chat, everyone who's just been part of the Still Poddable community. Thank you guys for tuning in. I never know how to end these things. Still Poddable. It's a podcast. I did it. We were talking.
Still Poddable, still Poddable. The Boston Celtics still Poddable, still Poddable. Oh.